What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to make a video talking about some really important settings that you probably want to change if you haven't already in Black Ops Cold War. I've had a lot of people asking me about various settings and which setting is best and which one they should use, and therefore I decided it was worth making this quick video. Keep in mind this video is focused around controller settings, this isn't for mouse and keyboard players. And right up front, I'm going to tell you guys that when it comes to most of these settings, they're going to be 100% based on preference. So while I'm going to share what my current settings are and what works for me, I don't necessarily recommend just copying and pasting exactly what I use because I use it, because that might not suit you and your preferences and your playstyle. However, there are a few key default settings that I feel are holding people back, and I really wanted to talk about those in today's video. So let's just quickly skim through the first part here. This is sensitivity, and this is an area that is really based on preference. So I'm not going to tell you exactly what you should be using, but I wanted to explain why I use what I use. So personally, I've found that 8 and 8 is the best for me with a 0.7 aim down sight multiplier. Now, the reason I like this so much is by having an 8 and 8 sensitivity, this allows me to spin around fairly quickly when I'm not aiming down sight. So if somebody ends up behind me, I can turn on them quite fast. However, if you have your sensitivity too high, especially while aiming down sight, you lose a lot of that precision and that fine control over your aim. And this is why I always like running an aim down sight sensitivity multiplier that's below 1. So this slows my sensitivity down only when I'm aiming where I need that precision. So I kind of get the best of both worlds. I can spin quickly if I need to, and I've still got precision while aiming down sight. Now, as for the other settings, I like using a tactical layout, but again, these are all just purely based on preference. Also, controller vibration, I always recommend turning it off. I just find when it comes to multiplayer gameplay, it can just be a distraction. It's really nice for immersion, for instance, in story-based modes, but if you're trying to be as competitive as possible, I find that it's great to just eliminate any potential distractions or anything that could potentially shake your aim off target a little bit. So I always leave vibration disabled. Now, scrolling through all these, I keep them at default, that they're pretty standard. However, this is where I really wanted to focus on today's video, because this is the default setting that I strongly feel is holding a lot of people back. This is your dead zone settings, which they don't have labeled as dead zone, which has been a little bit confusing for some people. Some people have been messaging me and asking why there are no dead zone settings. This is your dead zone setting. And with these, the main focus should be on the minimum input threshold for both your left and your right stick. And by default, these are set at 20, which is very high. And what this means is if you try to make a really fine adjustment with your analog stick and you have that value too high, you'll notice that a little bit of movement with your stick won't actually move your aim at all. And therefore, you're sacrificing all of those little precise movements because the game just isn't registering an input because your dead zone setting is too high. And I really strongly feel that a lot of people's aiming issues are simply due to this. And if you were to drop this value significantly, you're going to notice an immediate improvement over the way that your character feels and over the way that your aim feels. Now, this is something that needs to be tuned per controller. So whatever works for my controller, it might not work for your controller. Now, in order to find the perfect dead zone setting for you, you want to reduce this value as low as possible without getting any stick drift. And what stick drift is, I can show you guys here real quick, is if you pick a spot on a wall, for instance, and you put that center dot right on a point, like that dot right there, when I have my dead zone setting set to 0, you'll notice that if I let go of my controller, my point of aim is slowly moving away from that dot. This is stick drift. It's drifting on its own because that dead zone setting is too low. So what you want to do is start off at 0 or as low as possible, and then you just want to slowly bump it up 1 or 2 settings at a time until that stick drift just completely disappears and you can let go of your controller and nothing will move. No drift will happen. So you can see here for me, even at a 2 dead zone, it's still not really working. So let's bump that up to 3 and see how that looks. And again, we'll just recenter our aim on a dot. And right there, you can see there is still a very small amount of stick drift. So it looks like we have to bump it up 1 more value. And let's try 4 out with my controller. There it is. It looks like 4 is what works best for me and my controller, and therefore that's where I'm going to leave my dead zone setting. And this allows me to make even the slightest adjustment with my analog stick, and this really helps, especially when controlling recoil. This is going to help you a ton because it allows you to make those super fine adjustments with your aim. Now, I should also mention when it comes to the max input threshold, I would recommend just leaving this at 99 or 100. Just leave it really high. And the reason for this is it just gives you the maximum amount of range of motion out of your thumbstick. And this is generally what you want to have if you want to have as much control over your aim as possible. Now, one other setting that's disabled by default that I recommend turning on is Sprint Cancels Reload. Now, the way this works for anybody that's unaware, when you reload a gun, the game considers the gun reloaded once the ammo count in the bottom right shows that you have a full magazine. Even though there's still going to be an animation after that point, the game already recognizes your gun as being reloaded, and therefore that's your practical reload time. That's the reload add time. And one way that we can cancel that unnecessary animation after our gun is considered reloaded is we can simply sprint, if that setting is enabled. If it's disabled, sprinting won't cancel any of that animation out. You'll just continue reloading as you sprint. However, when you have it enabled, this allows you to reload. The moment you see that magazine full, you can just sprint and that animation is gone. You no longer have to complete that animation and you're back in the fight ready to go a little bit faster than before. Now, you can also do this by weapon swap canceling, or YY canceling as it was known in the past, but I like having both options available. So I can either YY cancel or I can sprint cancel, and therefore I personally leave that setting enabled. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on the best controller settings to use, or at least the settings that I encourage you guys to take a look at and maybe play around with a little bit. Hop into a custom game, mess around with some of these settings, and find out what works perfect for you. Now, I'm sure some people are wondering, what about all of the other settings in-game? For many of those other settings, I'm going to do independent videos like field of view, for instance, as well as a lot of the audio settings. Those are going to require a much deeper look, and they just don't fit within the scope of this video, so I will be covering those in the future. And today's video was just designed to be focused around controller settings. And with that, I'm curious to hear what you guys think in the comment section below, especially with the dead zone settings. Have you adjusted these at all since the game launched? And if you have, did it make a big difference in your ability to aim and hit your target? I know it made a huge difference for me, and I've also had several people asking me about this, and I've given them the recommendation, and then they've come back and said to me that it was like a complete game changer for them. So hopefully this is something that will help you out as well. If you haven't changed these settings yet, make sure you dive in, have a look, and I really hope that this ends up helping you out. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.